Now we're ready to take a look at the code of our name and address maker project. We examined what this project does from the user's perspective in the previous segment. Now we'll take a look at why it does what it does. When the user typed in information for their first name and last name, followed by the city, state, and zip code, they would then click on the display button. Let's open up the code window for this display button by double-clicking. And you'll notice that there's a comment that tells us what it does, and that is that it concatenates the text boxes for display in the labels. This is accomplished by using the special character, the ampersand. You'll notice there are a series of ampersands throughout this code, which is simply joining together the different parts that we want to concatenate. For example, in the LBL name label, we first want the contents of textFirst.text joined together with a space followed by the last name. If we did not put this space in here, then the first name and last name would be right next to each other and would be difficult to read. In the label address, we are joining together the contents of the city, followed by a comma, that's in quotation marks, followed by a space, followed by the state, followed by two more spaces inside of quotes, followed by the zip code. You'll recall that on the line at the end of the LBL address.caption line, there is a underscore, which is the continuation character. This simply allows me to write code on the next line and still allow it to be viewable on the screen. So two lines of code will join together the contents of the text boxes to be displayed in the appropriate labels. Now, to examine more code, we can click on the drop-down box at the top of the screen, and we can go to the clear procedure. Clicking on Command Clear will bring that code window into view. You will recall that when the user clicked on Clear, that everything on the form was reset to blanks. The text boxes are all handled in the same way, in that the name of the text boxes .text equals a null string. The null string is simply a quote with nothing in between it. Likewise, the labels are set to null strings by using the caption property and setting them equal to null strings. The option buttons are a little bit different in that in order to reset them, they are set to the property of false for the value property. So optionRed.value equals false will deselect that option button. Since we have no way of knowing which option the user has selected, we need to set all three option buttons to false. And then the final line of code in this procedure is textFirst.setFocused. And that is simply setting the insertion point back in the textFirst text box. Let's now visit the code for the option buttons. OPT blue, green, and red respectively. If we understand one, we understand them all. And that all we're doing is simply affecting the forecolor of the label itself. So when the user clicks on option blue, then LBL name.forecolor is set equal to vb blue. vb blue, you'll remember, is a Visual Basic constant that means blue. LBL address.forecolor equal vb blue likewise. Note that the option buttons, just like command buttons, have a click procedure event. So when the user clicks on option buttons, you can cause action to occur. The option green is doing the same thing, except we're substituting VB green, and likewise for the red, we're substituting VB red. Again, in all cases, what we're simply doing is changing the forecolor property of the respective labels. And that's it as far as code. There are a couple of things I do want to point out back on the form, however. So if I return by going View and Object and bringing back the Properties window by pressing the F4 key, you may recall that when the user enters a state, I'll run that real quick right now. I'll simply enter VA for the state. And if I try to type something else, I'm not allowed to. And that's because I have set the max length property for this text box. The state text box is txt state. If you examine the max length property, you'll note that it is set to 2. That's what prevents any more than 2 characters to be entered in the text box. All the other text boxes are set so they can accept virtually unlimited number of characters. A quick note about the naming convention. The text boxes, as you saw in code, are referenced as txt first and txt last respectively. The text boxes for the address information again follow the txt prefix, txt city, state, and zip code. The option buttons are referenced as OPT red, OPT green, and OPT blue. Remember, OPT is the suggested prefix for option buttons. And labels are called LBL name and LBL address. The 3 command buttons are named CMD display, CMD clear, and CMD exit. You'll recall it's very simple to create access keys. For example, for the display button, you simply go to the caption property and enter the ampersand immediately before the D in display in this case. You may want to retrieve this project and do some further experimentation with it yourself.